Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the inaugural podcast for the Living Legacy Project. My name is Tom Cormier. I am the co-founder of the project. I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to do everything I can to make your time worthwhile with me today. So let's get right to it. Well, consider this. Every day around the world, millions of our grandparents of the greatest generation, and actually now baby boomers too, these people are aging out of life. They're passing away. And they are unknowingly taking with them everything they witnessed, everything they learned over the course of their lifetime to their grave. And this is coming at a time when our children and grandchildren are looking to reality show stars and entertainers and their social media to guide them through the abyss of life, without ever learning the pitfalls and success pathways that have been experienced by those who came before them. Think about it. Even more troubling is the rate at which millions of these generations are falling prey to the ravages of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. The consequences of allowing this wisdom to vanish before our eyes are immeasurable, and especially with all the technology that's available at our fingertips today. If ever there was a time to sound the alarm, to rescue these life lessons, and I mean immediately, this is it. And that's why the Living Legacy Project was born. So if you lived the majority of your life during the 20th century, this podcast is all about you. So let's start this at the beginning with what we know about our ancestors. We might be the only ones who can give a first-person testimony to our grandchildren about who they were, what they were like, how they lived in their day. And so much of this information can explain why we behave in certain ways, where certain talents came from, or even explain why we might be suffering from certain illnesses. And all of this can have a profound impact on our children, our grandchildren, and our descendants. And I know this to be true because a couple of professors, Drs. Marshall Duke and Robin Phoebish, who are at Emory University, they created the Do You Know scale. And they did this to measure behaviors in children based on what they knew about their families and ancestors. And they found that the children who scored highest on the scale were associated with higher levels of self-esteem, they had better family functioning, they had lower levels of anxiety, and more importantly, they had fewer behavioral problems. So what this tells us is that when we pass down our family history, it can be the difference between success and failure for our children and our descendants. I'm going to give you a little example that I experienced myself with regards to this. My wonderful wife, Christine, she is the genealogist of our family. And I gotta tell you, I have no idea where she found this. She discovered an old reel-to-reel tape of my grandmother, who I hardly ever knew. She was playing a harmonica and singing. I have no idea who recorded it, when, or where. But I think this is the only live connection to her that anybody in my family has. And it actually might explain why my entire family is so musically oriented or talented, if you want to call it that. Let me just play a little snippet of that recording so you hear it yourself.
Your love and daddy comes home. Oh, wait till your love and daddy comes home. I'll tell him all you've been doing since he started to roam. He'll laugh at everything I would say.
I just get a kick out of it when I hear it. It's not only great to hear her play the harmonica, but when she starts talking, I get to hear her voice, her personality, and her dialect. My family's French-Canadian, migrated from Prince Edward Island in Canada, the Maritimes, and this is where this originated from. And this tells us so much about that. How priceless is that to our family? What else could we have learned from her alone? You know, the sad part is, now that I think about it, we're never going to know. With just this little tidbit, I start to think to myself, imagine how much personal history, valuable personal history, and family history has already been lost, and how much of that could have influenced our children today. And then think about the incredible opportunity that we have right now to alter the trajectory of how future generations will make life decisions. What life lessons could enrich our grandchildren if we could simply answer legacy questions like, where did you grow up as a child? What kind of neighborhood did you live in? What chores were you responsible for as a child? How were you disciplined? And what did you do differently when you were bringing up your own children? What kind of friends did you have growing up? Where did you go to school? What kind of student were you? Who was your favorite teacher and why? The answers to these questions probably seem mundane to you, but each answer is actually a legacy story, becomes a legacy story. And these can make a huge difference in the way your grandchildren approach life in their day. I mean, after all we've been through, all the challenges, all the small and large victories, all the amazing things we witnessed firsthand, are we going to deny our grandchildren the opportunity to learn these life lessons? Come on. Well, that's what's at risk of happening right now. In fact, before this podcast ends, tens of thousands of children will lose any chance of being enriched by their grandparents. How did you propose to your spouse? Or how did your spouse propose to you? Where was your first child born? Who was there? Did you breastfeed or did you give formula? These things matter. They matter. Did you want a big or a small family? Or did you want children at all? And why or why not? Think about it. Did you serve in the military? Well then, when and which war? Why did you even join? What motivated you to serve? What was your job there? What was the rank at discharge? Did you receive any medals or accommodations? Was there a particular event that stands out in your memory? Don't you think your descendants would want to know these things? Did you graduate from college? How did that education apply to your career? Did you start your own business? That'd be great information to know. Maybe they want to start their own business. They could learn from you. And if you worked at home as a housewife, your legacy stories are just as important to your grandchildren as anyone who managed a Fortune 500 company. You might not think so, but you were there when the kids came down with whooping cough, or the measles, or the mumps, and you held them in your arms when they broke their bones, gashed their knees. You healed them with remedies that were passed down to you. You disciplined the children the way you believed was best. You taught them their faith and kept them in line. You went to PTA meetings and drove them to Cub Scouts, Brownies, Girl Scouts. You mended their clothes, kept them safe, and proudly attended their graduations. And what about your recipes and family traditions? It's perfectly natural for many people to not want to talk about themselves, or that they feel like their life was boring or wouldn't be interesting enough for anyone to bother with. I get that. But this is not about you. You're going to let that puny excuse get in the way of giving the greatest gift of all to your family after all you have dedicated to them throughout your entire life? These are only just a few of the valuable life lessons that could make a tremendous difference. And actually, if you think about it, they can secure for you an honored place in family history for generations to come just by passing down some of your personal legacy stories, just by taking the time. You don't need to be sitting over here and talking about one day when you were trying to run to get the car and the car door was locked and you got shut out for the afternoon and you had to walk home in the rain. Big deal. It's not what we're talking about. Legacy stories, milestones, life-defining moments, moments that change the course of your life, forks in the road that you took, and the consequences of that decision, things your great-grandchildren and your children will honor you forever for taking that time to do this for them. You have lived at a time that is unprecedented in human history. Think about what you saw with your own eyes. Depending on your age, you bore witness to World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, and even the first Gulf War happened in the 20th century. Where were you when JFK was assassinated? You know. And what about Robert Kennedy and MLK? How did those events affect you? What were your political views at the time? Did they change as you matured? People do change. That's important for our grandchildren to know. And what changed and why? Right or wrong, your grandchildren will find this fascinating and insightful. These were your values. These are your values. And unless you expressed your values, they will get their values from others. Is this really what we want? You were there for the birth of civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, the upheaval of society as we know it. You saw a president resign, storms of the century, trials of the century. You watched a man actually step foot on the moon, for heaven's sakes. Now, the media has documented all the main events, but not the personal human experience of the 20th century. That can only be documented by those who lived it. And if we allow this immense body of wisdom to vanish for lack of effort, I'm telling you, future generations are going to look back at us as the most selfish, irresponsible generations of all. Exactly the opposite of what we could give to them. We're better than that. This is the very definition of leaving a legacy that can have an impact far greater than leaving money in a will. We should be passing down values more than we pass down valuables. So enough about the problem. Let's focus on the solution, which is what the Living Legacy Project is all about. We can collectively do something truly remarkable. We can have a say in the direction of civilization. And at a time when it seems that our votes can hardly make a difference at all. We can rally together around an issue we can all agree on and begin to see the impact of doing our part immediately and with profound results. We can learn from each other because when we know the story behind the person, our respect for others elevates, and it allows us to be more considerate and patient when we don't agree on things. By coming together for such a positive, common cause, our children and grandchildren, by default, are going to see that there is hope. And when they start sharing your legacy stories on their mobile devices, and they're going to discover there's a whole lot more to life than who just got thrown off a reality show or that a friend just bought a new shirt, whatever. Think of what we can do together. If we tell all our friends and family, our entire social network, everybody, about what's at stake, sound the alarm, and give them the tools and access to be able to do something when they learn about it, and do their part by interviewing their parents and grandparents, or recording their own legacy stories. It's something that they can measure right off the bat, and they can feel good about in this tumultuous world we're living in. This is where the rubber meets the road. I'm telling you, we can do this, and we must do this. And here is how we will do this. All right, so first off, we created the legacystories.org website. This is no ordinary story builder website. This is a free, comprehensive living history library, and it serves many masters. It provides legacy building tools and programs and opportunities, and they all fit a variety of interests and incentives. So during these podcasts, I'm going to constantly refer you to the legacystories.org website. So go ahead and write it down to make sure you got it right, legacystories.org. Now, in this podcast, I'm only going to share a few of the highlights about the three main story building features that we developed and that are going to help to preserve and share your legacy stories. We're going to do this simply by reminiscing with purpose. And that, my friends, is the easiest and most effective way for everyone to recall and enjoy the process of telling their legacy stories. Now, in future episodes, you're going to be amazed when I drill down into all that the legacystories.org library has to offer. For now, we're just going to do the highlights. Now, on the personal side, we developed some fantastic story builder features that suit individual preferences and skills. So, for example, there are some people that are just totally uncomfortable with writing, but they may be much more willing to record their stories with the spoken word. But if writing your life stories is more of your style, you could start a legacy story blog. Now, this legacy blog also comes with story prompts or legacy questions, as I talked about earlier. And you can actually have your legacy blog converted into a beautiful hard or softcover book as a tangible legacy asset. You can learn all those details on the Legacy Stories website. But then we have our Legacy Slideshow feature, a sanctuary for carefully chosen legacy photos that represent the highest priority memories in your life. And by the way, most of these images were captured by Brownie cameras and Instamatic cameras and Polaroids. Or starting in the 21st century, we've been using digital media. And ever since then, our legacy moments, the ones that really matter, are drowning in an ocean of images that are all on your computers, thumb drives, hard drives, backup drives, social media, multimedia, and they're on websites everywhere. But legacy slideshows are going to give you that place outside of all of that noise where the best of your best legacy photos can be preserved for generations. And finally, on the personal end, we developed an award-winning iOS and Android mobile app. And this is going to scan a vintage photo and it'll record your voice narrating the story behind the image. This is why we call them pictorial audios. You can also record an oral history without a photo. The app is awesome, and it's free. And we also built into the app a Storykeeper user guide. And this has over 220 legacy questions that are broken down into, over a dozen categories, and life stages, so you can just choose the questions that will help to begin the conversation. So now anyone can easily record their legacy stories or interview a loved one, and do it with any mobile device from anywhere in the world. And then you can upload the recordings to the website for safekeeping and sharing. You can even render your audio collection into a pictorial memoir and have it burned onto 100-year archival DVD. And this will ensure that your recordings will survive the passage of time when it's passed down as part of your digital legacy portfolio. So now everyone can tell their legacy stories the way they prefer, and almost everyone can do this, or they might have a younger loved one who could assist them with it. So, I hope you were enlightened by this important podcast, but being enlightened is only the first step. Now I'm going to give you a legacy assignment, because human nature dictates that life is going to get in the way, you're going to procrastinate, and then it's going to be too late. And then we're right back where we started from. Now, I know you believe in the value of passing down legacy stories. You wouldn't have stayed with me this far. So let's take advantage of this moment and turn it into something really powerful. So here are 3 things that I want you to do before listening to the next episode. First, if you haven't done so already, go to legacystories.org and create your free account. It's no trial membership, no conditions. It's free. And you'll have access to everything you need and more that's going to help you to build your own personal legacy portfolio, and a great one. Now, don't put that off, because the very act of creating your account is like making an emotional investment in your family and the future of civilization as we know it. Second, if you have an iPhone or an iPad, or if you have a smartphone or a tablet with an Android operating system, Search for Legacy Stories in the iTunes App Store or the Google Play Store. And then install the app on your device. That's also free. So do this if you haven't already. And if you have, I want you to check for the latest update because we've been making some serious improvements and we're going to continue to do that. So look for the updates and get updated right now. And then third, I want you to simply write or record the answer to this legacy question to get started. Here it is. What life lesson did you learn from a parent or grandparent that you applied in your own life? The answer to that question is going to set the stage for building a priceless legacy portfolio that's going to secure for you an honored place in family history while at the same time enriching future generations in ways that you can't even begin to comprehend. Now, I know a lot of you are listening while you're driving, so I'm going to let you figure out the safest way to make sure that you're reminded to do this when you get home. Do not forget. Now, I'm going to ask you to do one last favor, please. I want you to share this podcast with every person you care about, every family member, relative, friend, colleague, business associate. We could truly start a movement if we all share this message with our Facebook friends, tweet it out, and sound the alarm. Together we are going to make a difference. It's been my privilege to share this time with you, and I have so much more to share with you in future episodes. But until then, let's all reminisce with purpose. I'm Tom Cormier, and thank you so much for listening.